The ceiling on rent increases is dropping in August, which begs the question, how much can you actually raise rent on your Inland Empire rental property? You may not be aware, but California has statewide rent control on many homes. They call it a rent cap, but make no mistake, this is rent control. And if it applies to your rental, the max you can increase rents is about to be cut by as much as 20%. Currently, the Tenant Protection Act, which was enacted just a few years ago, caps annual rent increases at 5% plus the consumer inflation rate, but up to a maximum of 10%. The current cap for Riverside and San Bernardino counties is 9.3%, at least until July 31st. And then starting August 1st, the new cap is expected to drop 1.5 to 2 percentage points. So that's the bad news. The good news is this cap doesn't apply to every rental property. I'm going to break down two scenarios for Inland Empire rentals because knowing which category your property is in is going to make all the difference for you going forward. Scenario 1, properties covered by Assembly Bill 1482. The Tenant Protection Act covers all rental properties in California, but there are exceptions. Typically, included properties are corporate-owned properties, multi-unit communities, or properties built more than 15 years ago. Today, such properties located in Riverside and San Bernardino counties have a maximum annual increase of 9.3%. That's based on the Consumer Price Index of 4.3%, which was measured in March last year. Starting in August, the maximum is likely to be capped at 7.5% to 8%, based on the CPI that's being measured in 2.5% to 3% expected in March of this year. So, a duplex built in 2005 with rents at, say, $1,800 per unit would be eligible for a max increase of $167 in July. But come August, that limit might be just $135. And for either case, you'd be required to provide 30 days written notice to the residents. By the way, we're not saying you will or even should max out your rent increases every year. Keeping your rents close to market value is important, of course, but keeping great residents in your property is also important. Vacancy is the #1 killer of profitability. My point today is that almost every month we take on new clients who have not kept pace with the market. Some are even at half of the rent that they should be. With a ceiling in place, it's hard to catch up to market rent. Meanwhile, your expenses go up every year. So if you're covered by AB 1482, your new max rent increase could be as much as 20% less than the current cap. Now, scenario number 2, properties that are exempt from AB 1482. Larger investors may not qualify, but mom and pop investors, sometimes referred to as accidental landlords, often fall into this category. If you have a single family home or a condo, and it's not owned by either a corporation, an LLC in which a corporation is involved, or a real estate investment trust, or if the property is less than 15 years old, you may be exempt. But here's the kicker. If you are exempt, you must have provided a written notice to your residents that you're exempt, or you will not be allowed to claim that exemption. Yes, that's the law. Call your Sacramento lawmakers and thank them personally. If you are exempt and you disclose that fact to your residents, there is no government cap on how much you can raise your rents. But you do have to abide by the legal notice requirements of the state of California, which today ranges from 30 to 90 days. So, for a $2,000 monthly rental, if you increase the rent $100, you must give 30 days written notice. If the market rent on that home was $3,000 and you decided to bump the rent to $2,250, which is more than 10%, you must give 90 days written notice in that case. Now, you know how much you can raise your rent. The real question is, how much should you increase the rent? Because just because you can raise it 20% doesn't mean you should. There are many factors to consider. The most important being, what is market rent? What's the going rate for homes similar to yours? And by similar, I mean homes that are located within a mile or so of your property, homes that are of similar size, age, and featured amenities. If you don't know, or you don't have the ability to research those numbers, find someone who can. Looking up your home on Zillow is not doing research. That site is commonly wrong, and it could cost you a lot in lost time and bad data. Other factors to consider. What's your resident's payment history? How well do your renters care for their property? And lost rent. If you lose your tenants because of a price hike, what will be the cost to prepare your home for a new renter? And how much time will the home be vacant while the work is being completed and while you're marketing the home for a new tenant? Once you have all that data, then it's just a math problem. How many months will it take to recoup that lost rent? And if it's more than 12 months, this is where it starts to not make sense. But you have to go through this exercise to determine the right move for you come lease renewal time. Now, what's your next step? First, determine your property status. Single family home, condo, multi-unit? Is the property held and titled by your corporation, or is it just in your name? In the description below, we've included a link to download a primer to help you determine if you're covered by the Tenant Protection Act. However, we are not attorneys. To be safe, check with your legal counsel. This is no time to shy away from a $350 legal consult. Next, know your numbers. Find out the current CPI rate for your county. What's the market rent for your home? And check your resident's payment history. In the description below, we're also going to provide a link to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website that reports the inflation rates that you need. Step 3, bust out your calendar and get your crucial business decisions on the schedule. Because if you're not exempt from the rent caps and you're thinking you better act now to beat the August deadline, I'm sorry to tell you that you're already too late. The new rent needed to start before August 1st, which means July 1st in this case. To raise rent for July 1st, you would have had to give your residents 30 days written notice by May 31st. So let's make sure you have reminders in place for these important dates for next year. Rent increases of less than 10% require a 30-day notice. Anything greater than 10%, you'll need 90 days notice. Lastly, consider the big picture. This isn't just about maximizing rent. It's about optimizing cash flow, one of the 5 profit centers of rental properties. And it's also about keeping great residents in place and minimizing unnecessary vacancy, which, as we know, is the biggest profit killer for rental home investors. Owning a rental property in California is complicated. Sometimes it's frustrating. Oftentimes it's stressful. But in the long run, it can be a financial blessing if you have a great plan, follow the laws, and make good decisions. Investing in real estate is the surefire way in this country for an average person to go from zero to financial hero, but only if you're patient. If you have a rental property now, perhaps you inherited a home from a family member, maybe you've had to relocate and you aren't sure about selling, but you don't have the time or the constitution to handle it yourself, do yourself a favor, find someone to help you. You'll look back in 25 years and literally be counting your blessings. Most real estate investors will tell you that the only regrets they have are the homes they sold. Let's keep your regrets to a minimum. Don't be accidental about your future. Be intentional. To your success.